Origins of Hellion. Hellion is a powerful mutant telekinetic. He was a student at the Xavier Institute, leader of the Hellion Squad and Emma Frost's prize pupil. Hellion lost his hands during Second Coming, received cybernetic replacements, and is currently enrolled at the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning. Julian Keller is the son of billionaires William and Elizabeth Keller. He has an older brother, James Keller. His abilities of telekinesis developed during puberty. While his parents did not reject him for being a mutant, they did not want him to advertise his difference to the world. Julian refused to comply, believing himself to be superior because of these powers, and eventually, he was sent to the Xavier Institute in the hopes that he would learn to be more discreet. On first arrival, he was assigned Northstar as his mentor, but this soon changed. Julian Keller may come off as a bully, a snob, and an arrogant young man. He has an enormous ego, and is also a womanizer. Beneath this exterior, however, he is the best friend that anyone could hope to have, and has been described as having a heart of gold. His attitude showed improvement over the course of the new X-Men run. However, he is becoming bitter and uncontrollable after losing both his hands in the events of Second Coming, and may possibly be turning into a villain as he is chased further away from the X-Men. He has recently been shown beating Omega Sentinel to near death, thereby breaking his personal beliefs that X-Men don't kill or suggesting that he doesn't view himself as an X-Man anymore. Throughout New Mutants, and New X-Men, Academy X, Julian is shown to have the start of a relationship with Sophia Mantica Wind Dancer. She is put off by his abrasive nature, but does share several kisses with him throughout the latter series. She leaves in the beginning of New X-Men, Childhood's End. Both Mantica and Julian were shown to dream of each other, in the beginning. Out of all the other girls Julian might have gone out with, Sophia Mantica was the one who he truly loved. Starting in New X-Men, Childhood's End, Julian is shown to have a growing attraction to Laura Kinney X-23, a feeling that is reciprocated. Both have reacted with extreme panic when the other was in jeopardy, and have risked their lives to save each other. In the Second Coming, even where Julian loses his hands, Kinney is shown to be near him, horrified, and later visits him in the hospital with what she believes may be her last few minutes, seeing as she is going on a suicide mission, her hand resting where his would be on the bed. In the X-23 mini-series, they come close to kissing for the first time, but are prevented by the new X-Men, some of whom are insulting the couple. Julian puts his arm on Kinney's back and defends her. He later appears at the infirmary to visit her when she is injured. A scenario with demon-possessed Wolverine prevents any intimate moments, although Julian does impart to Kinney that she is his best friend. Later, when Kinney leaves Utopia, she stops by Julian's bedroom, but he pretends to be asleep, confused by the events in the infirmary room. In the following issue, he tries to save them but ends up getting sucked into a portal with the others and transported to another dimension. He wakes her up and he tries to tell her how he feels, saying that he thought about her every day and was waiting for her to come back. He leans in to kiss her but is interrupted by an explosion. After the events of Second Coming, Julian is left to deal with his new handicap. He is very angry and hurt, making sarcastic comments to many people about no longer having hands. The other students now treat him differently. Julian is seen butting into a conversation between Hope and Magneto about whether Hope is dangerous or not. Julian sarcastically comments about how he would scratch his head and ponder the thought, but he has no hands to do so. Magneto tells him to leave, which he does, but he glares at them out of the corner of his eye. He is also shown in New Mutants comparing wounds with karma and insisting that losing both hands is much worse than losing a leg. Shortly after this, Hellion turns down an offer to join Rogue along with Magneto, Loa, Anoli, and on their trip to India. Filled with anger and resentment, he acknowledges that he does not want to be in public due to his fear of public reaction to his current handicap. Wanting to help Julian after the loss of his hands, Dr. Kavita Rao modifies the mechanical hands that Madison Jeffries made and grafts them onto Julian. Eventually growing displeased with the prosthesis, in a fit of rage he wrecks the lab and removes them. Complaining, Hellion draws out that the X-Men have brought back the dead, but cannot give him back what he lost. Rogue once again appears and drafts him into Cyclops' team to help out the rebuilding efforts in San Francisco. While at the site, Julian and Hope have a chat about the nature of her powers and status as the mutant messiah. Hellion, still embittered over his belief that someone who is supposedly all-powerful is unable to help him. Hope argues that if she could help him she would, but Julian only berates her and storms off. Feeling the urge to blow off some steam, Julian then proceeds to violently blow up debris which dangerously lands near Hope and a small girl she meets during the volunteer work. The two girls then decide to chew out Hellion, but before they can, they are attacked by Omega Sentinel. Julian is confronted with a decision when it becomes apparent that the woman has contracted a virus that is causing her strange, dangerous behavior. Omega Sentinel begs him to kill her, and he does, for the first time trying to cause death with his powers. It is revealed after that she is brain dead. Cyclops then interrogates Julian, who relates the entire issue in a narrative. Julian explains that during Omega Sentinel's attack, he felt his powers amplify and experienced telekinetic control at the molecular level. He theorizes that Hope may have had something to do with this. Steering his attack through Hope and the girl, he delivers a major blow to Omega Sentinel without harming them. The rest of the team show up and demand Julian to stand down, but the attack from Omega Sentinel continues. That is when Julian destroys her. Cyclops and Rogue berate him for his actions. Then Cyclops puts him on probation. Julian can be seen walking to the edge of Utopia, thinking how he has no friends and doesn't need them anymore. In the recently concluded Age of X event, Julian is a member of the Force Warriors, and is missing his arms up to his biceps instead of just to his wrists. In this universe, he demonstrates the use of metal hands, with telekinetic arms. He was confronted with a decision to stand with or against Magneto, a protagonist in this story, and is shown to spare the idea careful thought, instead of acting rashly. It is said that this event will have a large effect on Julian, but what that effect will be is not yet apparent. When Blindfold is investigating for a hidden monster that may threaten the X-Men, she comes across Hellion. The two exchange words about that fact that Julian hasn't yet decided what his future holds. Blindfold leaves but not without telling him he's not the kind of monster that she is looking for. Powers and abilities. Hellion is a highly skilled and powerful telekinetic. He can fly at subsonic speeds, generate telekinetic force barriers, fire telekinetic force blasts, create force constructs such as platforms to lift people with, as well as lift things weighing multiple tons with only his mind. He has been shown to be able to simultaneously carry an X-wing jet while tunneling through over 1.5 miles of caved-in rock. Julian has also shown that he has a huge amount of untapped potential. After the new X-Men fought Nimrod and X-23 needed medical care, Emma Frost unlocked some of this potential so Hellion could get her to the mansion in time. He was able to travel from Dallas, Texas to New York in mere seconds, a distance of roughly 1,500 miles, while also plowing through a sentinel upon arrival before stopping. Since then, Hellion's powers have eased slightly in intensity, but for a while were much higher than before. As a result, he had very little fine control over his telekinesis. At one point, he tried to lift a paper clip and accidentally blew a hole through the floor of the danger room. On another occasion he blew up his bedroom, and stated that anything smaller than a refrigerator caused enormous explosions. His control has since improved, Recently he has been shown as being able to feed himself using only his telekinesis. Also due to the affects of age of the X, Hellion's fine motor control has skyrocketed. Before losing his hands, he channeled his telekinesis through his fingers. He has now begun to route the energy through his head, like most other shinicists. When Hellion uses his powers, the telekinetic energy he creates glows a bright green and makes a VRRRRM sound effect. The color only became apparent halfway through the new X-Men Academy X series, while the sound effect was introduced in New X-Men Childhood's End. X-23 has been shown as informing him that, in theory, he could easily defeat the invulnerable Kimura simply by expanding a bubble inside of her, to the point where she would explode. Hellion, however, is reluctant to kill, an attitude that may be changing, after having put Omega Sentinel into a coma. Hellion has some training in self-defense and martial arts from his education at the Xavier Institute.